Good evening. Thank you all for coming this evening. This is a public input session for the police staffing study. With me this evening is John Scruggs from Matrix Consulting. They're working with us and the police station and the police folks to help go through and see what our future projected needs are, as well as current mix of staffing. Joe Almeida, our facilities manager, is here as well, and Stephanie Secourt is helping with the Zoom side, and Deputy City Manager Suzanne Woodland is here as well. With that, the intent here is really to give a brief presentation and get feedback from you all. I believe the Chief and Deputy Chief are online as well. Just confirming.
Not yet?
Not yet?
Okay.
Well, we can wait, but why don't we get going? I mean, it's really, this is being recorded, so they'll be able to see it in the desire to be able to appreciate the rest of the evening. We can move forward with this. There will be an opportunity this will be posted on the website, and there will be an opportunity for folks to take survey and add input after this meeting as well. With that, John, why don't you go ahead?
All right. Again, I'm John Scruggs from Matrix Consulting Group, and we were retained to do this study. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'll tell you a little bit about our company. We've been around 23 years. We've worked in 45 states. We've done over 400 plus police studies around the country, many of those in communities just this size. And then one thing that we're very proud of is we have about an 85% implementation rate. So staffing studies are what we primarily focus on, but we do everything from policy review to incident review to looking at policies and procedures and making recommendations on those changes. Next slide. And so the scope of our work in this particular project is to evaluate staffing and facility needs. We do that through a number of different ways, but one is extensive input from the staff, doing interviews, going to be doing ride-alongs, conducting interviews with elected officials and other city stakeholders. And then we do a comprehensive workload and staffing analysis. And I'll go into a little bit of detail on that one bullet point, because it's not just when you're looking at police staffing, just the number of officers. It's how busy they are, what they're doing, what they need to be doing, and how they can focus on that. And so we look at total hours that they're actually working. So when you look at somebody's work shift and say they work about 2,080 hours a year, once you take out vacation, family leave, injury, court time, things like that, that number actually comes down quite a bit. And so they're really on the road in America roughly 1,200 to 1,600 hours a year when all those things are taken out, training that's required, administrative tasks. So we take that and we look at the number of calls that come in through the 911 dispatch, and then how long it takes them to, once they get the call, to go to the call, resolve the call, write reports, deal with witnesses, suspects, and all those things. And that is really what the workload is. And then using that number and the available number average out over a whole department for patrol, we're looking at what time do they have available to actually be proactive and work with the community. So you don't want officers going from call to call to call, because one, they can't follow up on any calls they took earlier in the day, and then two, they don't have time to be proactive on dealing with whatever issue the community may be concerned about, whether it's traffic enforcement on a street or a homelessness issue that needs to be addressed through intervention strategies and those things. So you don't want your officers going back every single call. So when we do our analysis, we'll come up with a number of percentage of time they should have available to address community concerns. And we do the same thing with investigations. One thing that is I think very interesting about investigation is that we all have an idea in the law, like what does it take to do a case? But really the behind the scenes of an investigative case are actually very detailed and lengthy. So for example, even just a simple assault case could require 3 or 4 search warrants. That takes 2 to 4 hours each one of those to write for a competent detective. Doing the interviews could be 1 to 2 hours, collecting evidence, reviewing evidence might be 1 to 2 hours. Then if they're going to use any kind of data to help their case, whether it's Google location data, call records, stuff like that. That's a preservation letter they gotta write, send it off to the company that houses that data, and then write a search warrant to get that data, then to analyze that data. So all these things happen in a good investigative case. And so 20 years ago, when we didn't have a lot of this digital technology and other things, you literally could solve a case in, 8 to 10 hours of work time. That's not the case now on a simple assault. It's just more complex, and it takes a lot longer. So we look at those, and we break that in our detailed analysis, looking at the current caseload that they have, that they're investigating, and breaking that out over time. So I just that's the kind of analysis we'll do on the staffing. And we do that for almost every position within the department. There are some things that are just kind of soft, where there's no data tracked, whether it's an administrative support person that doesn't, write down every email they sent that day or how many times they answer the phone from a community member. So those are more soft, but we know those positions are needed, and we figure out how they're needed based on interviews and who utilizes those services. So once like I said, it's a detailed analysis, it's a ground-up approach. We don't have any assumptions that your staffing right now is right. It could be too much, too little, we don't know. We start with really the facts that we can get through all the sources of data. And then we use that modeling to look at what you need now and then going in the future. And we look at population increases, but also zoning and, the types of zoning, active building permits going into the future to try to give us an idea of where you need to be at a certain point in the future. So when you build a police department, you don't build it for the police department you have today, you have it for what you may have in the future. And so it's important to get kind of those numbers right. And I think it's really important to also realize when we're looking at zoning, and obviously this is a very built out town, but when you're looking at zoning, is it going higher? Is there more people going to be living in that block? What type of activity is going to occur there? So commercial zoning has a different impact on calls for service than does residential, than does industrial. And so we look at all those mixes and come up with, here's what your likely call load is going to be. I can tell you, I'm not going to disparage, but there's a well-known supermarket, I guess to call it something. We know, looking historically at them, if you put one in your community, it's 400 calls for service a year minimum. Won't name names, but we've done that analysis on multiple locations. So we know that. So when we look at Portsmouth, we're going to be knowing in your commercial zones what you're putting in and how that may affect calls for service. And then most importantly, community input is very important for this process because the police department serves you. And so everything from the type of services you're getting now, the type of services you want in the future, any gaps in service that you can identify now or something we take into consideration when we're modeling the police department that we think you should have based on the input and the data. Next slide. So really, like I said, this is really to get the community input and really, get your ideas and suggestions for the city. And these issues include the community presence of the police, proactivity, what are they doing, responsiveness to the needs of the community, and then facility issues as well, which is a part of this study. Next slide. So I'm hoping that I'll get some input from the folks that are here, because I'm posing questions and I really would like to have your answers. We'll be taking notes. Once this meeting is over, we'll pull the Zoom back up and we'll take notes from the meeting. So anything you give will be in our notes for this meeting. But first of all, in your neighborhood, what are the principal law enforcement issues? For example, traffic enforcement, property or person crimes, drugs, or other issues. Anybody in here have specific issues in their community that are law enforcement related? Yes, ma'am.
Traffic enforcement with speed.
Speed.
So actually, John, if we could have folks come up to the microphone
Oh,
so that we can,
okay.
so I can get registered on the Zoom, because
All right.
that and state your name and address, please, ma'am.
Sure. Good evening. Mary Lou McElwain, 259 South Street. So I'm just over the hill, literally. So it's traffic enforcement, speed, which I'm on parking traffic safety, and I'm on the newer committee to study the police and the whole municipal building. So that seems to be current. It seems to be a complaint that comes up very frequently. So that's primary in our neighborhood, and I would say in many of the neighborhoods in Portsmouth. And it's interesting, when I've asked at our meetings, parking, traffic, safety, where the accidents occur, parking lots of supermarkets or the mall. So your comment about a supermarket gets calls that you were referring to. It's interesting. So that's it.
All right. Anyone else have any other issues that in their community they think need to be addressed or want addressed?
Stephanie, is there anybody online that? If there's anybody online, they can go ahead and raise their hand, and Stephanie can. Okay.
All right. Next question, I guess we'll have to have them come to the podium, but do you feel safe in your neighborhood is the next question we had posed.
Yes.
I see some head nodding yes in the affirmative, so I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, next slide. Do you feel that there is sufficient police presence in the community? Are there police visible in your mind?
If you have specific comments, you feel free to get up. If not, you can raise hands and we can convey the fact that hands have been raised or people are nodding. I'm seeing a hand, two hand, three.
Okay.
So the consensus seems to be they're comfortable.
In the past, we moved here 25 years ago, we used to see a lot more patrolmen walking the streets and on bicycles. So I'm not seeing that as much. Bicyclists, yes, but not walking the streets. So I think that's part of community connection.
Okay.
So for clarity, the answer or the comment was, in the past, there was a lot more walking police officers and bicycle officers, and not as many of late. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. And do you feel the officers have engaged with you when you have seen them? Stopped and talked to you?
Yes.
If I ask them a question,
Okay.
they're very forthcoming.
So the answer is yes? We're hearing yes?
So the answer is yes. What I'd like to do is, we're asking specific questions, and it's a different format than we've used in the past. If folks have comments at the end, they can come up to the podium and make specific comments related to it. We will try to capture the nodding heads and hands saying yes as we go along. But at the end, we'll make sure people have the opportunity to get up and have
in
a
more
statement if
detail.
they need to, or have a question or whatever they would like. So, John, we can keep going.
All right, yeah, sorry, I'm not following a typical format here, but we usually do a lot of these question and answers just really informally, though we record them so we can take our notes later on. So, are there any suggestions for how the police department can be more engaged?
I think it's fine. They don't need to be tipping their hat,
He's gonna bring the mic out.
Okay,
but responsive.
So, Joe, actually, if
Yep, I can work.
there's a microphone, there we go. This will help. What we'll do is we'll have Jerry Springer hand the mic around.
all right, so no suggestions for how they can be more engaged? Or, no, maybe we do.
Well, my comment about seeing the police on the side, in the community, walking the beat, bicycling the beat, I think that would make a difference. I do see them at the middle school especially, because that's where I walk, and they are always engaged. They're
Okay,
open for conversation. Same with the policemen who are at various and sundry wards during election time. They're very open and easy to talk with. And then I think it's a great police department in that
Okay.
way. Yeah.
so next slide. Sort of redundant in a way, but we're asking, when you do have concerns about crime or traffic and quality of life issues, has the police department been responsive? Like, have you called in, said, I'm having a traffic issue here? Have they sent out an officer to respond, to watch traffic in that particular area? Has anyone experienced that?
Yes.
All right.
Seeing heads nod. Yes.
All right, then moving on to the next question. Do you believe there is a partnership between the police department and the community?
So I guess.
I'm wondering why there are so few people here. I understand we're not talking about the cost of the new construction, which would bring more people out, maybe. But I guess I don't, what was the question? Oh, partnership. Okay, and I'm feeling that when I look through social media that people are hesitant to comment, make any negative or critical comment regarding the police because they're the police. So, we don't really want to criticize the police and identify ourselves, surely, but yeah, so I don't know how you would approach changing that. I think that's just kind of a natural thing. People are just hesitant to say anything critical about the police.
Well, aside from that, like in partnership with them, if you had a special event or you wanted the police to be involved, do you think that they would do that? Do you feel like
Yeah.
there's that kind of partnership? Like,
If
hey,
you
we're
a-
having a thing on Saturday, can you send an officer by? Do you get that kind of responsiveness, that partnership?
Probably. I've never had that experience, but they seem receptive to talk. I don't know if that would be a I don't know. I don't know what the protocol is for having a policeman present at a private function. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, private or,
Yeah.
just even like, a Saturday market or something that, you might have in your neighborhood that they
Oh,
come
yeah,
by.
I'm sure. I'm
Okay.
sure if it was a neighborhood, yeah.
Okay. And do you see them at community events? Are they regularly at community events that are sponsored by the city?
Community night out is the one.
Okay,
That's when you see them.
all right.
I'll talk. To be interactive with the police today is very difficult because they're in their cruisers. I live in the far reaches of Portsmouth. You don't see a policeman walking out there. I don't expect to see him walking in my neighborhood. It's a physical impossibility. Panaway is just one step away from Greenland. So, the guys I see them occasionally. I go back a lot of years in Portsmouth, and I knew all the police at one time because I interacted with them a long time. Portsmouth was a lot smaller, all right? We don't have we don't have more new people today than we have. We have a lot of people in and out. These guys have got a job to do. It's nice to see them walking around. Downtown Portsmouth is basically the only time you should have them walk. Wintertime, I don't want to see them out there walking. It's cold, all right? But the presence of the police department, these guys, I know a few of them, they do a good job, all right? I don't know what we're trying to get at. They're doing their job. We want the city to do their job. I thought this was about the needs assessment for the police station. I'm not laying anything on these guys because they got a thankless job. No matter what they do, they're behind the 8 ball. But they do a good job. I know, I've been around here a long time. I was here back when the Copelands and the Phil Miles of the world were here. These were good policemen. And these guys we have today is good policemen. But you can't expect them to walk in Maple Haven. You can only, and out of Panaway, they have to have their cars. They're in their cars. I think basically the visibility is what the people are looking for. Visibility, when you see that black and white, people slow down. I remember the days they used to put a mannequin inside the cruiser. And stuff like that. That makes the city safer.
All right. I appreciate your comments, and just so you know, the reason we ask some of these questions the way we do is we're trying to identify gaps in potential service, things where we might say, oh, well, the police department might need staffing to do that, or maybe they are staffed fine to do that already. So we're trying to figure out, are there things that the community is seeing that maybe they're not seeing, or maybe need to be addressed through staffing or other measures. And so the more we hear from the community and the more input we get, the better we understand your police department, the better we can make recommendations regarding how they should be staffed, what they could be doing with their proactive time once we have, made that determination where it's at and what the level is. Every community in America has kind of a different standard from police. Everything from what they'll do on a call for service to, response times to everything else. I mean, and so those are all things we look at because we want to understand your needs, your determination of what you think your police department should be. And that helps us in a big way because I can tell you, I have a client in Texas where the police department actually comes out and takes dead carcasses out of their backyard if a deer dies. That's a level of service you don't see in a lot of places. It's not even animal control, it's literally the police department does it. And they'll send 2 people out there and retrieve a dead deer. And it's not an uncommon call, believe it or not. And so that's very high level of service, and that's what that community expects. There are other places where they just want them to show up when they call, and whether they show up to a community meeting or at a community event, not really important to them. They just want a good response time, and that's what's important to that community. So we're trying to gauge that through these questions, and you're helping us get there. And then at the end of this, by the way, and it'll be on the Teams meeting call too, is there's gonna be a QR code you can take with take a picture of it, and it'll take you right to a website where you can leave open-ended comments that you might not have left or want to say in public here, but we're gonna review them. They go just to us, so we'll have them to review. And I just want to point that out. So,
And this presentation will be online, and that QR code will be there, and there'll be an opportunity for folks who aren't able to attend this meeting to have input as well. And this study is input to the police facility project itself. So this is enabling work that's important to verify or to validate the staffing levels that are predicted. So it's another data point in the design process that we're doing. So that's why this step is important. It's separate from the actual construction design, but it's enabling that next step.
all right, so the next question we have is, if you were to report an emergency, would you expect the police department to be there in under 10 minutes? Got a lot of nods, yes? All right. If you've requested police or non-emergency report, like a cold crime, would you expect an officer to be there in under 30 minutes? No, a cold crime, like, so you came back, or you woke up in the morning and saw that your car had been broken into, stuff astray, but there's nobody there, nobody, you don't even know when that occurred. What would you expect the response time to be for that kind of call? Okay,
So that was 30 minutes, seems reasonable.
all right. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this next one, because I think we've already hit it, pretty much. Suggestions for working more closely with the community, I think we've covered that pretty well. Unless you got something.
Add something about interacting with the police. Thank you. I think there are many opportunities to do that in the community when there are public events, whether it's the 4th of July or an event at Strawberry Bank or Prescott Park. The rallies that were in Market Square, there was good police presence there without a feeling as if they were controlling. They were really trying to get people to stay on the sidewalks. But they were also interacting with people the whole time, including the police chief. So there are opportunities like that at the schools, at games at the schools. There's a lot of, I think, exposure of the police department within the community. When I made a reference to walking around downtown, that's really what I was referring to, is just walking around town. But I do like seeing a police car at the corner of Market and Daniel Street, often, with someone in it who's actually talking to you. So I feel that that's a real plus for this community.
Okay.
Farmers Market would be a good one. You can walk right here. Have an officer there just once in a while to say hello and chit-chat with the community.
Okay.
Could you just perhaps repeat that into the mic so that,
I was saying Farmers Market would be a good opportunity since it's so close to the station. They can just walk out and have an officer there to chit-chat with the community and just make a presence.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, could you hand that back to him?
all right, next slide.
Ju-
Oh, go ahead.
I think John O'Leary, 50 Nathaniel Drive, one of the things that I experienced a few years ago, which is kind of an odd thing with regards to the police, but it made an impact on me, is that if you, say for instance, you're going for some sort of security and you have to have your fingerprints taken, that's a tremendous opportunity for the police to create a good relationship with a member of the public. And I think that one of the things that it needs to be talked about so that the officers involved with that recognize that it is a good opportunity to make a positive relationship with the public and not see it as something that they don't want to do, something that's a pain to do, but it is something that gives them an opportunity to create a relationship with a member of the public. Just an example.
Okay, that's a good one. Any more on that? Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, you're already there. So has anybody in this room actually been inside the police facility?
Right to one of you.
Looks like over half of you. What are your impressions on the quality of space within the police facility?
You want to hand the mic around there? Thank you, Joe.
Well, I have toured with a group. I've been here 25 years, and last month was 2 months ago was the first time I had toured the police station. We need work, major work. I was really, as I said at a public meeting, I was really distressed for several days after touring to realize what our department, the conditions under which they're working on 2 floors. I think we're in need of some major work within the building or a new building.
Okay. Anyone else got some comments on that? Did anybody have comments about the amount of space? Have you been through the facility and have any impressions on the amount of space that's in there? Or how it's utilized?
I have not been in the facility, other than just the entrance, so I'm not familiar with the size of the space and how it compares to other departments in New England for the same size population that we have. That would be an interesting thing to see, our space need that we're proposing versus what it currently is or what's proposed in the future.
Okay. And then last, location, is it in the right spot? Do you think it should be part of this municipal complex, or should it be downtown, or is it in the right spot?
I personally think our city is growing in, outside of the downtown. I don't understand why it needs to be in this particular location. I think a facility down with land that we already own, down near the recycling center all the way over to the community center, that's a huge tract of land. Why a facility can't be done there, which is closer to where the growth is, the condominium market and all that, close to the hospital, close to 95, easy to get in town, maybe just have a small substation here and the major facility there. I don't understand why the cost is so much more to have it built at a different location versus here. Those are just my opinions.
Okay.
One of the things that I've become aware of is that the mindset with regards to the police station, when you think about, and I want to do a little comparison, when you think about fire stations where we have substations out on Lafayette Road, et cetera, that's because people are stationed there and need to be able to get to places quickly. That's why we have a substation on Lafayette Road. With the police department, the officers are out in cruises. They're all over the city. So the location, as far as I'm concerned, is not that important. Whether it's here or Lafayette Road or frankly at Pease, you know, the access of the officers to the points that they have to get to provide services isn't really impact as far as where the station is located. So I think that, you know, what we're dealing with right now is that there's a, frankly, political preference to have everything at one location. And that's what's driving that aspect of it. Would it be, you know, I was chairman of the library building committee, and there was a big push to have the library downtown. Why it needed to be downtown, that's for someone else to decide. But that was the political reality, was that it was going to be downtown. Would it have been better? Would it be better serving the community if it were on the outskirts and easier to get to? That's for someone else to decide. But with regards to the police station is concerned, the majority of the calls are responded to by officers who are already out on the road. So it really doesn't make, in my opinion, doesn't make that much difference as far as the location. But I think what we're dealing with right now is that there's a, as I say, a political preference for this particular site, and that's what's driving that aspect of it.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment on that?
I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I agree that the location is, I was thinking downtown myself, but you're right, officers are in cars and driving around, so a central location to, for sending out calls to somebody who needs to assist in one way or another. It doesn't really matter that it's downtown or another location.
Okay. All right, next slide. Oh, sorry, I missed that one. All right, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we currently have an infrastructure of other locations, I feel, where Peter Rice is, that whole building there. A lot of those guys are working in that facility all day long, correct? Like the water department and so forth. Maybe move them to this building and put the police station down where the public works department is. It's an easy expansion down there to do such a thing. I just think just reorganizing what we have for an infrastructure, there might be other ways to solve the need for a police station versus spending billions of dollars on a new facility here.
All right, any other suggestions on facilities? All right, now next slide. Has anyone had experience with the police department relating to its other services like investigations, dispatch, animal control, or records? Have you interfaced with any of those?
Yes. So, my neighbor across the street from me, his home was burglarized when he was away. And when he came back, he called me to ask if I had seen anything, and that, because apparently it was had just happened. I forget how he knew, but he knew that it had just happened, and I wasn't helpful at all. I did not see anything. I asked my neighbors across the street and on either side of me if the police had questioned them, and the police never came to my door either. So how did they investigate this burglary? I don't know, because it seems that he had a safe in his house that someone broke the back door down and moved a safe into it. I mean, I just think that maybe the police should have been more actively, and I think there was a resolution for that crime, but I didn't see any investigating happening. So That's just a question. I wondered what they did do to
Okay.
investigate.
Anyone else have an experience when any of those services or other services? And I think we just answered did they meet your expectations on responsiveness and service, and in your mind, you didn't see investigative follow-up? All right. Any thoughts on how to improve any of these services if you think there is improvement warranted?
How many animal control officers do we currently have? Just one?
I believe it is one, yes.
The question was how many animal control officers, and the answer is one.
All right, we have a QR code on the next slide that you can use your phone, and it'll take you to the website, and it's open-ended question. You can fill in how you want, and it goes directly to us so that we can, go through your comments. It's especially important if you didn't want to give public feedback, so we can still get your feedback from you.
In addition to this public meeting, there has been meetings with the library, with Housing Authority, Crossroads House, and a number of other folks throughout the city. So this is not just the only input session, as well as the city councilors have been reached out to and have been interviewed. So it's, your comment or question about how come nobody's here, I think it's because it's a beautiful night, probably. But there will be more opportunities. It's not the only outreach that we're doing.
And then the last slide is really just open any questions or discussion. Anything else that didn't come up that we should be thinking about or looking at as we do this analysis and move forward?
Again, no, I think one of the things, I serve on the Blue Ribbon Committee. I also served on the working group that worked on the police station beforehand. And over the last 40 years, I've been involved in many projects here in Portsmouth, a lot of them capital improvement projects. One of the things that I try to do is think about try to answer two questions. One is, what can we do to provide our employees with the tools and an environment which will help them serve our citizens? And the second question I try to answer is, how can we do this in the most cost-effective way? And I figure if we do that, we can be fairly successful in what we do. With regards to the police department, first of all, to try to answer the question, and this is just my opinion as opposed to a general answer to the question. Why don't we have more people here? Because I think, as a general rule, most people in Portsmouth are very comfortable with the services that they receive from the police department. And my experience in public services is that when people show up, they show up because they're dissatisfied. They don't show up when they're satisfied. So I think, as a general answer, most people are happy with the police department and the job that they do. And the same thing is true with all of our other city services. So it's just not police. I think what we're looking to do is to make adjustments that help the police department and the city do that job. And also, what I'm looking for from Matrix and through this process is what you mentioned earlier, John, is the fact is we, as general members of the public, don't know the intricacies of what the police department does. The police officers and their leadership knows that, and you as a professional know that. I'd like you to look at what we do now and bring your expertise to the table as far as what we can do better. And secondly, which you also mentioned, is we know what we need. We know we're satisfied with what we have right now, but we don't know what the future is going to look like. And if this process that we're going through, which will require expenditures of money, how can we best allocate those funds so that that takes us forward 15, 20, 30 years, and we don't have to spend a lot of money during that time to do things that we should be doing, that we should have done now. So that's my, I appreciate, us being here and you having the public forum, but I think that the answer to it is that the reason we don't have a lot of people here is that there's a lot of satisfaction at this point in time, which is a good thing. Thank you.
I agree that I think people are satisfied, but I think they're going to be unsatisfied if we're spending that $70 million, which was reduced to $40 million on a new facility that we may not need. I know that Dover they didn't, 9 years ago, had a new facility built, and they have a third more population than we do, and it's a challenging population. I think we've been, we have. Yeah, we do. They are getting there too. There's a lot going on in Dover now. But anyway, that's. I think I agree that people. Well, it's a nice night. I walked here from Woodbury Ave. It was very nice, but I think if we have discussions about what it's going to cost the general public, I think there will be more seats filled in this room. But what I wanted to comment on was police training, maybe younger police. There was an incident that happened, I think it was New Year's Eve, and it was by at the mobile station by Gosling, the intersection of Gosling and Woodbury, where a fellow was in his car, and it was maybe after midnight, but he was not doing anything. He wasn't sleeping in his car. He was sitting in his car. And two officers were patrolling, and they challenged him about, questioning him what it was that he was doing there. And he responded with something like, "I'm sitting here." So they escalated this. It became an issue where there was no issue. And what happened, I think they called in two other officers who were more seasoned officers who immediately de-escalated the whole thing. I'm not sure if the gentleman was arrested or, there was not a follow-up on what happened. But that's the question that I have. I know younger officers can be not seasoned and more quick to make mistakes with the public, I guess, possibly. So I don't know. That's something the police need to do. It's nothing we need to do. But
Okay.
South Street just turned it off. You turned it on, I did. Peter Huda? No. Peter Huda, 2A South Street. So, in answer to your question, why not that many people are here, from my understanding, what was posted on the city website, the police commission was supposed to be here, and there was supposed to be a presentation. So, my expectation was to see a presentation of where you were so far and the staffing needs. So I did have questions, and my first question is, did you have available to you the study that was done on November 16, 2011 on public safety strategy by the Public Safety Strategy Groups to the Portsmouth Police Commission? This was an organizational review, probably the same thing as I would assume you're doing now. And I did have a lot of questions on, they had a lot of suggestions about organizational structure, about overtime, about all kind of different things that were listed in here. And my question was going to be, have you reviewed that, and have you found that they have done any of this, or where were we on that side? As far as I was a little confused on the building, because we have already moved past all the other questions and everything, and it has been decided that we are going to use here at the City Hall. So I thought that was an interesting question, but the thing that I wanted to see was where you were at this time, because we've been kind of waiting for 2 or 3 or 4 months to actually see the results.
So-
Those are my comments.
John, I'll speak to the location. Peter, as you may recall, City Council voted to have the police station stay at this location.
Right.
That's why, when you stated that, that's why we're talking about this location, because we were charged with that. Not to go out and look at other sites, but to stay here and look at what we can do in this location.
Right, I understand that, Peter, but it also asked a question on there if you thought this was the best site and the size and everything. A lot of us have done all the tours and everything, and we were past that. So I was a little confused as to why we're going back and asking the public's opinion for that at this point in time. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. And then as far as we did look at some prior reports that were done, but we are doing our analysis independent of that, so we weren't looking to see what they'd followed up on in any prior reports that had been done. So this is kind of a ground up, our approach. And usually when we do a study like this, we do ask if they've had any other studies done recently, so that we can review those and then see if there was anything that comes up out of those reports that we should be keying in on, but there wasn't in this case.
Well, I can tell you I'm going to be looking at your study and the last study to see what was implemented and if you found the same issues or you found the same needs or excesses in anywhere.
Okay.
Because, that looked like a baseline, and there was a lot of good suggestions and recommendations that came out of that. And personally, I can't tell, especially with the organizational structure, if anything was implemented on that would have been, positive for the police department and the city.
Okay, well, I will make sure I bring it up with our team. We meet once a week to go over those issues, so I'll bring that up.
Just a question. I went looking for this meeting on the city website. The first one, it said canceled municipal building blue ribbon committee. I was supposed to be at 3 o'clock and it was canceled. With a lot of hunting, a friend of mine found it, and it says police staffing study public input briefing meeting. That's this one at 6 o'clock. I was looking for some numbers as to what the needs assessment was that I know Councilor Cook's been asking for a year and a half. And this is how I figured we were going to do some delving into this. What size police station do we need? Well, I haven't heard any. Believe me, I know you guys are under a gun politically and whatever, but if we're going to do something like this, let's make it so people are confused. Probably that's why nobody showed up. You put something out there, and people are saying, okay, what are we doing?
So the intent of this meeting was to gather additional information before a report comes back. Because if we waited till after the report comes back, we wouldn't be able to include the input from the public to determine what the level of staffing was necessary. So the intent is, this is really one step in the process. The discussions have always been said that, come May, we'd be seeing some initial numbers from this study, and we're still anticipating, I believe, May 14th is probably when we're going to be seeing the next piece of information coming out. So it's, I appreciate people's desire to get this answered, but as John said, there's a lot of information that they're sieving through, and to make sure they're taking into consideration all the needs and to put forth reasoned recommendations. You can't just do it very quickly. You have to take the time to do that.
I understand that, but, you know, it was confusing when you see this on the website. Because that's how I find out what's going on as far as what
Sure.
meetings or whatever I want to attend. So I was coming in here to listen to something and say, we need X amount of space.
Sure.
That's
And-
what this.
I understand the confusion because this is this is independent from the Blue Ribbon Committee.
I understand you
And
need
it's,
to build
so
with
it's
this.
not this, but I can understand why it'd be confusing.
Right. You know, you have to build somewhere.
Sure.
And I was told that we've already had 2 staffing studies. Whatever, if that's true or not, fine. But somewhere along the way, we've got to start telling the citizens of the city what it's going to cost us. I know we have a placeholder for 40 million in the CIP, correct?
42.5.
Something like that, right. At 40 million, 2 million isn't either here nor there. But,
it's
you know,
still 2
I'd like
million.
to know, I'm a taxpayer.
Yep.
You know, this one hurt this last time, and it's going to go up. And I just want to make sure we're in the same ballpark. Thank you.
Yep.
As far as staffing is concerned, what is the impact of Water Country on our staffing?
On
On
what?
Water Country, the facility on Route 1, what is that impact on our staffing? I've heard in the past we have to have so many more officers because of Water Country.
Well, there's a couple different things, and it's road analysis that we'll look at, you know, how fast can you get to another, you know, another
Well,
part
not
of
so
the.
much the location, just the thousands of people that are there on a given weekend. There has to be more of an officer presence. Is that correct?
It depends on the call load. So we're looking at, so you could have a festival, for say, with 5,000 people show up and not produce a call load that increases. So we really look at your dispatch records very heavily because we do have communities that have a lot of tourism. And they'll say, well, we have an influx of, you know, X thousand people every weekend. But then we look at the CAD, the computer-aided dispatch records, and we see, yeah, but there's only, you know, 17 calls, and that's pretty normal for the community even on other days. So that we rely really on the data and not just, you know, the population. In fact, you know, we have seen in other studies where they do it based on population. We don't use a population method for how many police you need, you know, the 2 per 1,000, whatever. We don't believe in that whatsoever because 2 per 1,000 may be great in Detroit, Texas. It might not be so great in Detroit, Michigan. So we really look at the calls for service, and that's how we develop our analysis. And I will say we're pretty far into the analysis now, so it isn't too much longer, but we want to make sure we definitely got the community input part of it, as well as all the other, you know, stakeholders we've been interviewing along the way before we develop any kind of, you know, put pen to paper and develop any kind of product. But we've been going through the CAD, we've been going through, you know, all the investigative caseloads. We've done all that kind of work. Now this is the phase where we're getting a last bit of input, seeing how those numbers make sense and what kind of impact they would be on how many staff you need. So we're pretty far along in the process. Anything else?
Stephanie, anybody online? No, we only have police. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. There'll be additional opportunities for feedback. This will be posted online, and please, you know, feel free to add additional comments. And, you know, we look forward to the next step. So thank you very much for coming out.